Ryan Robertson's spacecraft plummets through the alien atmosphere, hurtling towards the lush, untamed surface of Betazoid. The human explorer grits his teeth, wrestling with unresponsive controls as the ground rushes up to meet him. With a bone-jarring impact, the ship crashes, kicking up a cloud of debris and leaving a deep furrow in the verdant landscape. Dazed but alive, Ryan pushes open the twisted hatch and stumbles out into the humid air of this primitive world. He blinks, his eyes adjusting to the unfamiliar light of twin suns overhead. The crash site is surrounded by dense vegetation, unlike anything he's seen before. As he surveys the damage to his ship, movement in the undergrowth catches his attention. Emerging from the foliage, a group of humanoid females approach cautiously. Their lithe bodies are adorned with simple garments made from local flora, and their large dark eyes regard Ryan with a mixture of fear and fascination. At the forefront stands Lyra, her posture radiating authority among her peers. Ryan raises his hands in a gesture of peace, but something unexpected happens. The Betazoid females freeze, their eyes widening as they inhale deeply. A visible shudder runs through the group, and their expressions shift from curiosity to raw, primal hunger. Lyra takes a step forward, her movements suddenly predatory. Ryan's heart races as he realizes the situation is rapidly spiraling out of control. The air becomes thick with tension as the Betazoid females begin to compete for position, jostling and shoving to get closer to the human. Instinctively, Ryan backs away, but finds himself cornered against the wreckage of his ship. The females advance, their eyes locked onto him with an intensity that sends a chill down his spine. He notices their fingers twitching, as if fighting the urge to reach out and touch him. Lyra, asserting her dominance, pushes to the front of the group. She bares her teeth at the other females in a clear warning, before turning her attention back to Ryan. The human explorer feels a sudden pressure in his mind, a foreign presence pushing against his thoughts. He realizes with a start that these aliens are telepathic, and they're projecting their desires directly into his consciousness. The psychic onslaught overwhelms Ryan's senses. Images flood his mind, primal, passionate scenes of mating rituals and fierce competition. He struggles to maintain his composure, fighting against the tide of alien emotions and instincts threatening to drown him. Through the haze of telepathic interference, Ryan forces himself to focus on his surroundings. Beyond the ring of females, he spots a village of crude huts and structures. Stone tools and primitive weapons lie scattered about, painting a picture of a society untouched by advanced technology. Word of the alien visitor spreads quickly. More Betazoid females converge on the crash site, their arrival intensifying the already volatile atmosphere. The air thrums with a palpable energy as dozens of minds reach out, probing and prodding at Ryan's psyche. Recognizing the escalating danger, Ryan attempts to communicate with Lyra. He gestures to himself and then to the sky, trying to convey his off-world origins. But the language barrier proves insurmountable, and the Betazoids' overpowering instincts render them incapable of rational interaction. As Ryan wrestles with the challenge of establishing order, a new complication arises. Male Betazoids, alerted by the commotion, begin to gather at the edges of the clearing. Their postures are aggressive, eyes narrowed as they assess the threat posed by this strange intruder who has so captivated their females. The human explorer finds himself at the center of a perfect storm. Competing females vie for his attention, their primal urges threatening to tear apart the social fabric of their society. Territorial males close in, driven by instinct to challenge this newcomer and protect their mates. Ryan Robertson, stranded on this primitive world, must now navigate a precarious path. His very presence has become a catalyst for chaos, potentially disrupting the entire culture of Betazoid. As tensions rise and the situation teeters on the brink of violence, the human explorer steels himself for the challenge ahead. He must find a way to survive, to communicate, and to mitigate the impact of his unexpected arrival, all while resisting the overpowering allure of the Betazoid females who can't control their primal urges. Ryan's mind raced as he assessed the volatile situation unfolding before him. The Betazoid females, driven by their primal urges, pressed ever closer, while the males circled menacingly at the edges of the clearing. Time was running out, and he needed to act fast to prevent a catastrophic confrontation. With a sudden burst of inspiration, Ryan recalled a small device in his damaged spacecraft, a low-frequency sound emitter he had used for wildlife studies on other planets. He glanced back at the twisted wreckage, calculating the risk of retrieving it. "I have to try," he muttered under his breath, inching backwards towards the ship's hatch. The moment he moved, the Betazoid females surged forward, their eyes wild with desire. Ryan dove through the hatch, fumbling in the darkness of the cockpit. His hands swept over broken panels and scattered equipment until they closed around the familiar shape of the emitter. Heart pounding, he emerged from the ship to find the aliens mere feet away. Without hesitation, Ryan activated the device. A soft hum filled the air, imperceptible to his human ears, but clearly affecting the Betazoids. The change was immediate and startling. The females froze in their tracks, their expressions shifting from aggressive hunger to one of rapt attention. Even the males at the periphery stopped their advance, cocking their heads as if listening to a distant melody. Ryan watched in amazement as the tension drained from the clearing. The Betazoids swayed gently, entranced by the inaudible sound. Seizing the opportunity, he locked eyes with Lyra, the dominant female who had first approached him. Slowly, deliberately, Ryan raised his empty hand, palm out, in a universal gesture of peace. He pointed to himself, then to the sky, mimicking the trajectory of his crash landing. Lyra's large dark eyes widened with comprehension. A flicker of understanding passed between them, transcending the barriers of language and species. Ryan felt a gentle probing in his mind, Lyra's telepathic abilities reaching out, sensing his intentions. He projected images of peace, of cultural exchange, of learning and growth. Lyra's posture relaxed, and a look of wonder spread across her face. She turned to the other Betazoids, communicating Ryan's message through a series of chittering sounds and expressive gestures. The atmosphere in the clearing shifted dramatically. Curiosity replaced aggression as the Betazoids regarded Ryan with new eyes. Lyra took a tentative step forward, her movements no longer predatory but filled with gentle inquisitiveness. Ryan held perfectly still as Lyra approached, allowing her to examine him closely. Her delicate fingers traced the contours of his face, marveling at his alien features. As their eyes met, Ryan felt a surge of mental energy, Lyra's telepathic abilities providing her with vivid glimpses of his thoughts and memories. The connection was intense and intimate. Ryan gasped as he felt Lyra's consciousness brush against his own, witnessing flashes of her life on this primitive world. In turn, he saw her amazement at the images of advanced technology and distant planets that flowed from his mind. This mental exchange seemed to awaken something in Lyra. Her eyes gleamed with a new intelligence, a hunger for knowledge replacing the primal urges that had driven her before. She turned to her tribe, conveying her newfound understanding through a series of rapid telepathic bursts. The other Betazoids responded to Lyra's lead, their initial frenzy giving way to cautious curiosity. They approached Ryan in small groups, reaching out to touch his strange clothing and equipment with wonder. Recognizing the potential for peaceful interaction, Ryan made a decision. He would stay, at least temporarily, to learn about this fascinating species and perhaps guide them towards a greater understanding of the universe. Over the next few days, Ryan immersed himself in Betazoid culture. He observed their simple yet effective stone tools, their intricate social hierarchies, and their deep connection to the lush world around them. In turn, he shared what he could of his own knowledge, using gestures and simple drawings to convey concepts of science and technology. Lyra became his constant companion and protector, her enhanced telepathic abilities allowing her to grasp complex ideas with surprising speed. She acted as a bridge between Ryan and the rest of the tribe, helping to smooth over misunderstandings and facilitate communication. However, as Ryan settled into life among the Betazoids, he began to notice troubling changes. The females who spent the most time around him, particularly Lyra, started exhibiting enhanced mental abilities and increased problem-solving skills. While fascinating from a scientific perspective, these rapid changes caused ripples of unease throughout the tribe. A group of male Betazoids, led by a muscular hunter named Karn, watched these developments with growing alarm. Karn's piercing gaze followed Ryan's every move, his body language radiating hostility and suspicion. One evening, as Ryan sat with Lyra by a communal fire, he overheard Karn speaking in hushed tones to a group of his followers. Though he couldn't understand the words, the meaning was clear. Karn saw Ryan as a threat to their way of life, a disruptive force that needed to be eliminated. Lyra sensed Ryan's unease and placed a comforting hand on his arm. Her touch sent a jolt of mental energy between them, and suddenly Ryan could see through her eyes. He witnessed the conflict raging within her, torn between her growing feelings for him and her duty to her people. As the twin suns of Betazoids sank below the horizon, Ryan realized that his presence had set in motion events that could reshape the entire species. The once simple goal of survival had evolved into something far more complex and potentially dangerous. With Karn's hostility growing and Lyra's condition becoming increasingly unstable, Ryan knew that crucial decisions lay ahead. He gazed up at the alien stars, wondering if he would ever see Earth again, and steeled himself for the challenges to come. As the night deepened, Ryan's thoughts turned to the challenges that lay ahead. The first rays of dawn were just beginning to paint the sky when Ryan awoke with a start. Something was wrong. He turned to find Lyra writhing on the ground beside him, her body radiating an intense heat. Her normally smooth skin glistened with sweat, and her eyes darted wildly beneath closed lids. "Lyra!" Ryan called out, his voice permeated with concern. He placed a hand on her forehead, recoiling at the dangerous fever that burned within her. Her body trembled, and incomprehensible whispers escaped her lips, fragments of the intense telepathic visions tormenting her mind. Ryan knew he had to act fast. Without hesitation, he scooped Lyra into his arms, her lithe form feeling unnaturally light. He set off towards his crashed spacecraft, hoping that his advanced medical equipment could provide the answers and treatment Lyra desperately needed. As he carried her, Ryan couldn't help but notice the subtle changes in Lyra's appearance. Her skin had taken on a faint, ethereal shimmer, and her facial features seemed more refined, almost sculpted. The sight only confirmed his growing suspicions about the accelerated evolution his presence was triggering in the Betazoids. Reaching the battered hull of his ship, Ryan carefully maneuvered through the twisted metal, cradling Lyra close to his chest. He gently laid her on the makeshift examination table he had set up in the days following the crash. His hands moved swiftly over the array of medical devices, selecting a bioscanner to assess Lyra's condition. As the scanner hummed to life, Lyra's eyes suddenly flew open. Her gaze locked onto Ryan's, and in that moment, an intense connection surged between them. Ryan gasped as he felt the full force of Lyra's consciousness brush against his own. Images flooded his mind, glimpses of Betazoid's past, present, and a rapidly changing future. The intensity of the connection left Ryan breathless. He steadied himself against the exam table, his heart racing. As he regained his composure, he noticed movement outside the ship. Through a crack in the hull, he spotted Karn, the muscular Betazoid hunter, observing them from the tree line. The hostility in Karn's eyes was unmistakable. Ryan's instincts screamed danger. He knew he had to act quickly to stabilize Lyra's condition before Karn made his move. With practiced efficiency, he prepared a cocktail of stabilizing drugs, carefully adjusting the dosage for Lyra's alien physiology. As he administered the treatment, Ryan heard the sound of approaching footsteps. Karn had rallied a group of male Betazoids and was advancing on the spacecraft. The tension in the air was palpable as Ryan stepped out to confront them. Karn stood at the forefront of the group, his muscled frame taut with aggression. He barked out a series of harsh sounds, gesturing angrily at Ryan and the ship. Though Ryan couldn't understand the words, the message was clear. Karn was challenging him, demanding that he step away from Lyra. Ryan held his ground, raising his hands in a placating gesture. He spoke slowly, using the few Betazoid words he had learned. "Peace. Help Lyra. No harm." Karn's eyes narrowed, unconvinced. With a guttural roar, he charged at Ryan, his massive form barreling forward with surprising speed. But Ryan was prepared. Years of combat training kicked in, and he nimbly sidestepped Karn's rush. Using Karn's momentum against him, Ryan pivoted, sending the Betazoid stumbling past him. Karn crashed into the underbrush, his fall kicking up a cloud of alien flora. The other Betazoids watched in stunned silence. Ryan's display of skill and strategy had clearly caught them off guard. Murmurs of uncertainty rippled through the group as Karn struggled to his feet, his pride visibly wounded. Sensing an opportunity, Ryan stepped forward. He pointed to himself, then to Lyra inside the ship, and finally to the gathered betazoids. "Together," he said, emphasizing the word with a sweeping gesture that encompassed them all. "Help all?" As Ryan's words hung in the air, a new presence made itself known. An elderly betazoid female emerged from the crowd, her movements slow but purposeful. The other betazoids parted respectfully, allowing her to approach Ryan and Karn. This was Zira, the tribe's wise woman. Her eyes, clouded with age but sharp with intelligence, studied Ryan intently. She raised a gnarled hand, placing it on Ryan's forehead. Instantly, he felt the gentle probe of her telepathic abilities. Images flashed between them. Ryan's journey through the stars, his crash landing, his efforts to help Lyra and understand the betazoids. Zira's eyes widened as she absorbed the vastness of Ryan's knowledge and experiences. After a long moment, Zira turned to address the gathered betazoids. Her voice, though frail, carried an undeniable authority. She spoke at length, gesturing to Ryan, to Karn, and to the ship. As she finished, a sense of calm settled over the clearing. Karn, his anger seemingly tempered by Zira's words, stepped back. He still eyed Ryan warily but made no further aggressive moves. The other betazoids relaxed their stances, their expressions shifting from hostility to cautious curiosity. Zira approached Ryan once more, taking his hand in hers. Through their touch, he understood her decision. He would be allowed to stay, to continue his work with Lyra, and to share his knowledge with the tribe. In return, the betazoids would assist him in repairing his spacecraft. As the group dispersed, Ryan returned to Lyra's side. Her condition had stabilized, but the changes in her physiology continued to progress. Her skin now emitted a soft, bioluminescent glow, and her features had become even more refined. Ryan's mind raced as he considered the implications. He had inadvertently triggered an evolutionary leap in the betazoids, and now he needed to find a way to control and understand the process. The fate of an entire species might hang in the balance. Outside, the betazoid tribe buzzed with activity. News of Zira's decision spread quickly, and Ryan could sense the growing divide among the aliens. Some approached the ship with undisguised fascination, eager to learn from the strange visitor from the stars. Others hung back, their postures betraying their fear and suspicion of the changes Ryan represented. As night fell once again on the alien world, Ryan found himself at a crossroads. The challenges ahead were immense, managing Lyra's condition, navigating tribal politics, and working to repair his ship, all while grappling with the profound implications of his presence on this world. He gazed down at Lyra's sleeping form, feeling a surge of emotion he couldn't quite name. The connection between them had grown deeper, more complex. Ryan knew that his feelings for her were becoming entangled with his sense of duty and his scientific curiosity. With a deep breath, Ryan turned to his workbench. He had a long night ahead of him, filled with research, planning, and preparation. The fate of Lyra, the betazoids, and his own future on this alien world hung in the balance. As he began to work, the twin moons of Betazoid cast their eerie glow through the ship's battered hull, illuminating the path to an uncertain future. Future on this alien world hung in the balance. As he began to work, the twin moons of Betazoid cast their eerie glow through the ship's battered hull, illuminating the path to an uncertain future. Ryan's fingers flew over the medical scanner, his eyes narrowing as he analyzed the results. What he saw made his breath catch in his throat. Lyra's DNA was changing at an alarming rate, incorporating elements that were unmistakably human. "This is unprecedented," he muttered, running the scan again to confirm his findings. The implications were staggering. Somehow, the Betazoid's powerful telepathic abilities were facilitating a form of rapid adaptation to his presence. Ryan glanced at Lyra's sleeping form, her skin still emitting that soft, otherworldly glow. He needed to understand the full scope of these changes. With restored dedication, he set to work converting a portion of his crashed ship into a makeshift research station. As dawn broke, Ryan emerged from the ship, carrying an array of salvaged medical equipment. He approached a group of curious betazoids who had gathered nearby. Need help, he said, gesturing to the equipment and then to them. Study changes. To his relief, several betazoids stepped forward, extending their arms. Ryan carefully took blood samples from each volunteer, marking them meticulously before returning to his impromptu lab. Hours passed as Ryan analyzed the samples. The results confirmed his suspicions. Every member of the tribe was experiencing some degree of genetic modification. Those who had spent the most time near him, like Lyra, showed the most significant changes. A soft noise from behind startled him. Ryan turned to see Lyra sitting up, her eyes clear and alert. "Lyra," he breathed, rushing to her side. "How do you feel?" She tilted her head, considering. When she spoke, her voice was stronger than he'd ever heard it. "I feel different, powerful." Ryan watched in awe as Lyra gracefully rose from the examination table. Her movements were fluid, almost predatory in their precision. She flexed her hands, a look of wonder crossing her face. "What's happening to me, Ryan?" she asked, her gaze locking onto his. He explained his findings as best he could, using simple terms and gestures to bridge the language gap. Lyra's eyes widened as understanding dawned. "Show me," she insisted, pointing to the medical equipment. Over the next few days, Lyra's recovery progressed at an astonishing rate. Her strength and stamina increased exponentially, and her cognitive abilities sharpened to a razor's edge. She absorbed complex scientific concepts with ease, her enhanced intellect quickly grasping ideas that had taken Ryan years to master. As they worked side by side in the makeshift lab, Ryan found himself increasingly drawn to Lyra. Her newfound confidence and intelligence were intoxicating, and he often caught himself staring at the graceful curve of her neck, or the intense focus in her eyes. Lyra, too, seemed acutely aware of Ryan. Her touches lingered longer than necessary, and her gaze often drifted to him when she thought he wasn't looking. The air between them crackled with unspoken tension and mutual fascination. Their growing closeness did not go unnoticed. Karn, his resentment festering, began to whisper to others in the tribe. Ryan caught snatches of conversation as he moved through the betazoid settlement, the hostile tone unmistakable, even if the words were foreign. "Corruption," Karn spat, gesturing towards Ryan and then to Lyra. "Danger." The propaganda gained traction among some of the older betazoids, who viewed the rapid changes with fear and suspicion. Worried glances and hushed conversations followed Ryan wherever he went. Zira, the wise woman, approached Ryan one evening as he worked outside his ship. Her weathered face was creased with concern. "Tribe divided," she said slowly, her limited grasp of Ryan's language evident in her halting speech. "Need proof. You worthy." She outlined her plan, a series of trials to test Ryan's abilities and his value to the tribe. Success would mean acceptance. Failure could lead to exile or worse. Ryan nodded grimly, understanding the stakes. "I accept," he said firmly. As he prepared for the trials, a new complication arose. A group of young betazoid females began exhibiting uncontrolled telepathic outbursts, their minds broadcasting waves of raw emotion that left others reeling. Ryan worked frantically to stabilize these mutations, acutely aware that the delicate balance within the tribe hung by a thread. Lyra was by his side constantly, her enhanced intellect proving invaluable as they raced against time. The night before the first trial, as Ryan pored over his notes, a commotion outside caught his attention. He emerged from the ship to find a group of the mutated females advancing on him, their eyes wild and unfocused. Their minds slammed into his with brutal force, a maelstrom of primal urges and fragmented thoughts. Ryan staggered under the psychic assault, his vision blurring. Suddenly, Lyra was there. She placed herself between Ryan and the group, her own telepathic abilities forming a shield around them. The air shimmered with the force of her mental exertion as she pushed back against the onslaught. "Enough!" Lyra's voice rang out, both aloud and in their minds. The females recoiled, their expressions clearing as Lyra's influence washed over them. As the group retreated, Lyra turned to Ryan, her eyes filled with a mixture of concern and something deeper, more primal. Without a word, she took his hand, leading him back into the ship. The dawn of the first trial arrived, painting the alien sky in hues of amber and violet. Ryan stood at the edge of the Betazoid settlement, armed only with the primitive tools they had provided. The hunting party, led by Karn, watched him with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Lyra approached, her eyes shining with worry and affection. She pressed something into his hand, a small, intricately carved stone. "For luck," she whispered, her fingers lingering on his palm. As Ryan stepped forward to begin the trial, he felt the weight of countless eyes upon him. The future of the Betazoids, and his place among them, hung in the balance. With a deep breath, he squared his shoulders and plunged into the alien wilderness, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The alien wilderness loomed before him, a tapestry of unfamiliar flora in shades of deep purple and electric blue. Ryan took a deep breath, inhaling the sweet, slightly metallic scent of the Betazoid air. He gripped the primitive spear he had fashioned, its weight unfamiliar yet reassuring in his hands. Karn led the hunting party, his muscular frame taut with anticipation. The Betazoid warrior cast frequent glances back at Ryan, his expression a mixture of curiosity and lingering resentment. As they ventured deeper into the forest, Ryan's earth-honed survival instincts kicked in. He moved with careful precision, eyes scanning the undergrowth for signs of prey or potential threats. The group moved silently through the dense foliage, communicating through subtle gestures and telepathic nudges. Ryan, unable to participate in the mental exchanges, relied on his keen observation skills to follow the hunter's lead. Suddenly, a low growl reverberated through the air. The hunting party froze, their bodies tensing in unison. From the shadows of a nearby copse, a massive creature emerged. It stood on 6 powerful legs, its body covered in iridescent scales that shimmered in the dappled sunlight. Razor-sharp claws extended from each of its feet, and a row of spines ran down its back. Ryan's heart raced as he took in the sight of this alien predator. He had never seen anything like it, even in the extensive galactic databases he had studied. The beast's eyes, a swirling vortex of gold and black, locked onto the hunting party. Karn, his face set in a determined grimace, stepped forward. "I will take it down," he declared, his voice carrying a hint of bravado. Before Ryan could protest, Karn charged at the creature, brandishing his spear. The beast reacted with lightning speed, swatting Karn aside with one of its massive paws. The Betazoid warrior flew through the air, crashing into a nearby tree trunk with a sickening thud. Time seemed to slow as Ryan assessed the situation. The other hunters stood frozen, their minds reeling from the psychic backlash of Karn's pain. The predator, emboldened by its easy victory, advanced on the stunned group. Ryan's mind raced, piecing together a plan. He grabbed a handful of bright blue berries from a nearby bush, crushing them in his palm. The pungent odor filled the air, catching the creature's attention. "Hey!" Ryan shouted, waving his arms. The beast's head swiveled towards him, nostrils flaring. Ryan hurled the crushed berries at the predator's face, the juice splattering across its eyes. The creature roared in confusion and anger, pawing at its face. Ryan seized the opportunity, sprinting away from the group. "Follow me!" he yelled to the beast, leading it away from the incapacitated Karn and the other hunters. Ryan's heart pounded as he ran, the sound of the creature's thunderous footfalls close behind. He weaved through the trees, searching for anything he could use to his advantage. Ahead, he spotted a narrow ravine cutting through the forest floor. Without hesitation, Ryan leapt across the gap. He turned to face the charging predator, his improvised spear held at the ready. The beast, blinded by the berry juice and enraged by the chase, failed to notice the ravine. It charged forward, its momentum carrying it over the edge. The creature's roar of surprise echoed through the forest as it tumbled into the ravine. Ryan quickly used vines and fallen branches to create a makeshift barrier, effectively trapping the beast below. Panting heavily, Ryan made his way back to the hunting party. He found Karn conscious but dazed, supported by 2 other hunters. The Betazoid warrior's eyes widened as Ryan approached. "You saved us," Karn said, his voice a mixture of pain and grudging respect. Ryan nodded, offering a hand to help Karn to his feet. "We worked together. We survived together," he replied. The journey back to the village was slow, with the hunters taking turns supporting Karn. They brought back not only the massive predator Ryan had trapped, but also several smaller game animals they had managed to catch along the way. As they emerged from the forest, cheers erupted from the gathered betazoids. Lyra rushed forward, her eyes shining with relief and pride. "You did it," she breathed, taking Ryan's hand in hers. The celebration was short-lived, however. Zira approached, her weathered face creased with worry. "Ryan," she said urgently, "we need your help. The young females, their condition has worsened." Ryan's elation faded as he took in the gravity of Zira's words. He squeezed Lyra's hand, drawing strength from her presence. "Show me," he said, his mind already racing with possible solutions. As they made their way through the village, Ryan could feel the psychic disturbance in the air. It prickled against his skin, a testament to the power and volatility of the mutated betazoid's abilities. In the distance, he could see a group gathered around the entrance to a large cave, its mouth emitting pulses of ethereal light. Zira explained the situation as they walked. They've barricaded themselves inside the sacred cave. Their minds, they're in chaos. Anyone who gets too close is overwhelmed by their projections. Ryan nodded, his expression grim. He turned to Lyra, noting the grit in her eyes. "We need to find a way to dampen their abilities," he said. "I have an idea, but I'll need your help." Together they hurried back to Ryan's ship. As they worked to modify a piece of salvaged equipment, Ryan couldn't help but marvel at Lyra's enhanced intellect. She grasped complex technical concepts with ease, her fingers flying over the circuitry with preternatural skill. As the twin suns of Betazoid began to set, casting long shadows across the village, Ryan and Lyra approached the cave. The air around them crackled with psychic energy, making Ryan's hair stand on end. He activated the dampening device, feeling immediate relief as the psychic pressure lessened. Lyra closed her eyes, reaching out with her mind. "I can sense them," she murmured. "They're scared, confused. Their minds are evolving faster than they can handle." Ryan took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. He met Lyra's gaze, seeing his own tenacity reflected in her eyes. Together they stepped forward, ready to face the challenge that awaited them within the depths of the sacred cave. As they entered the dimly lit cavern, the air grew thick with psychic energy, making it difficult to breathe. Ryan adjusted the dampening device, creating a bubble of relative calm around them. The young Betazoid females huddled together in the center of the cave, their eyes wide with fear and confusion. Waves of raw emotion pulsed from them, causing the very air to shimmer. "It's okay," Lyra said softly, her voice soothing both aloud and in their minds. "We're here to help." Ryan approached slowly, his hands raised in a non-threatening gesture. He began to explain the situation, his words calm and measured. As he spoke, Lyra translated his thoughts telepathically, ensuring the frightened females understood. Hours passed as Ryan and Lyra worked tirelessly to stabilize the young Betazoid's abilities. The dampening device proved crucial, allowing them to gradually acclimate to their enhanced powers without being overwhelmed. As the last of the females regained control, exhaustion washed over Ryan. He leaned against the cave wall, his body aching from the mental and physical strain. Lyra stood beside him, her presence a comforting warmth in the cool cavern. "You did it," she whispered, her fingers intertwining with his. Ryan turned to her, struck by the intensity in her eyes. Without thinking, he leaned in, their lips meeting in a passionate kiss. The world seemed to fall away as they embraced, the air around them crackling with more than just psychic energy. When they finally parted, Ryan became acutely aware of the silence that had fallen over the cave. The young Betazoid females watched them with a mixture of curiosity and awe. As they emerged from the cave, leading the now stable group of females, Ryan could feel the weight of countless eyes upon them. Word of what had transpired between him and Lyra spread rapidly through the telepathic network of the tribe. The following morning, Ryan was summoned to meet with Zira. The wise woman's face was creased with concern as she gestured for him to sit. "Ryan," she began, her voice grave, "your actions have had unexpected consequences." She explained that medical scans had revealed accelerated genetic changes in Lyra, beyond what had been observed in other Betazoids. Her body was adapting, potentially preparing to carry hybrid offspring. Ryan's mind reeled at the implications. "Is she in danger?" he asked, his voice tight with worry. Zira shook her head. "Not immediately, no. But this development has caused great concern among the tribal elders. The speed and extent of these changes were unforeseen." As they spoke, a commotion outside drew their attention. Karn's voice rang out, filled with righteous anger. "See what the outsider has done! He corrupts our people, threatens our very existence." Ryan stepped out of Zira's dwelling to find a crowd gathered, their faces a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Karn stood at the center, his muscular frame tense with nearly unleashed fury. "If you truly wish to be part of our society," Karn challenged, his eyes boring into Ryan, "you must prove yourself worthy. You must complete the rite of ascension." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Ryan had heard whispers of this dangerous ritual, traditionally reserved for young betazoid males coming of age. Karn described the treacherous mountain path, the hostile wildlife, and the rare mineral Ryan would need to retrieve from the cave system. "And you will do this without your advanced technology," Karn added, a cruel smile playing on his lips. Ryan's heart raced as he considered the challenge before him. He thought of Lyra, of the young betazoids he had helped, of the fragile peace he had worked so hard to maintain. "I accept," Ryan said firmly, meeting Karn's gaze. The next few days were a blur of preparation. Ryan immersed himself in studying betazoid survival techniques, poring over what limited information he could gather about the local flora and fauna. Lyra was a constant presence, her enhanced intellect proving invaluable as she shared detailed mental images of the terrain. Her touch lingered longer each time they parted, her eyes filled with a mixture of pride and fear. As the day of the trial dawned, Ryan stood at the base of the mountain, armed only with primitive tools and the knowledge he had gained. The twin suns of Betazoid cast long shadows across the landscape, painting the sky in hues of amber and violet. Lyra approached, her eyes shining with unshed tears. She pressed a small, intricately carved stone into his hand. "For luck," she whispered, echoing her words from his first trial. Ryan pulled her close, their foreheads touching. No words were needed, their connection transcended language. With a deep breath, Ryan turned to face the mountain. The path ahead was fraught with danger, but he was determined to prove himself worthy of his place among the Betazoids. As he took his first steps up the treacherous slope, he could feel the weight of the entire tribe's future resting on his shoulders. The ascent began, each step taking Ryan further from the safety of the village and deeper into the alien wilderness. The vegetation grew denser, the air thinner as he climbed higher. Strange calls echoed through the mountain passes, reminding him of the unknown dangers that lurked in this alien environment. Ryan's earth-honed survival skills were put to the test as he navigated through a patch of iridescent plants with leaves sharp enough to slice through his skin. He carefully harvested a few, remembering Lyra's mental image of their medicinal properties. As he rounded a narrow ledge, a screech from above made him freeze. A creature with leathery wings and razor-sharp talons dove towards him. Ryan dropped to the ground, feeling the rush of air as the predator barely missed him. He scrambled for cover, his heart pounding as he planned his next move. The journey had only just begun, and already Ryan faced challenges that would push him to his limits. But with Lyra's stone clutched tightly in his hand and the memory of her touch to drive him forward, he pressed on, determined to conquer the mountain and secure his place among the Betazoids. Betazoids. With each step, the air grew thinner and the terrain more treacherous. Ryan's muscles burned as he navigated the steep incline, his senses on high alert for any sign of danger. As he rounded a particularly jagged outcropping, a blur of movement caught his eye. Before he could react, a massive figure barreled towards him, eyes wild with primal fury. Ryan barely had time to register the distorted features of a mutated Betazoid male before he was forced to dive out of the way. Rolling to his feet, Ryan found himself face to face with 3 more mutated Betazoids, their bodies twisted and bulging with unnatural muscle. Their eyes gleamed with a feral intelligence, and in their hands, they clutched crude weapons fashioned from mountain stone. Ryan's mind raced, recalling the survival techniques he'd learned and the knowledge Lyra had shared about Betazoid physiology. He scanned the environment, looking for any advantage he could use. The first mutant charged again, swinging a jagged stone axe. Ryan ducked under the blow, using the mutant's momentum to send him stumbling past. In one fluid motion, Ryan scooped up a handful of loose gravel and flung it into the eyes of the nearest attacker. As the blinded mutant howled in pain, Ryan darted between two large boulders, forcing his pursuers to approach single file. He grabbed a long, sturdy branch from the ground, wielding it like a staff. The mutants pressed their attack, but Ryan's earth combat training gave him an edge. He parried their wild swings, using precise strikes to target pressure points Lyra had shown him in their mental link. One by one, the mutated betazoids fell, incapacitated but not seriously harmed. Panting heavily, Ryan surveyed the fallen mutants. His display of skill and mercy had not gone unnoticed. From his peripheral vision, he caught glimpses of observing tribe members hidden among the rocks. Even some of Karn's supporters watched with grudging respect. As Ryan caught his breath, something caught his eye. One of the mutants' weapons had a strange, iridescent sheen that seemed oddly familiar. Upon closer inspection, he realized it bore a striking resemblance to the ancient artifacts he'd encountered earlier in his journey. This revelation sent Ryan's legs shaking. Could exposure to the mountain's minerals be unlocking dormant knowledge within betazoid DNA? The implications were staggering, but he had no time to dwell on them. The cave containing the rare mineral lay ahead, and he pressed on. The cave's entrance loomed before him, a dark maw in the mountainside. As Ryan stepped inside, the air grew noticeably cooler. The passage twisted and turned, leading him deeper into the mountain's heart. Suddenly, the narrow corridor opened into a vast chamber that took his breath away. The cavern was filled with technology far beyond anything he'd seen on Betazoid. Sleek, otherworldly consoles lined the walls, their surfaces adorned with symbols he couldn't comprehend. At the center of the chamber stood a pedestal, upon which rested a softly glowing mineral, his objective. Ryan approached cautiously, his heart pounding. As he drew near, the mineral's glow intensified, pulsing in time with his steps. He reached out, his fingers inches from its surface, when a powerful sensation washed over him. It felt as if every cell in his body was vibrating in resonance with the mineral. In that moment, miles away in the Betazoid village, the artifact in the sacred cave began to emit an identical glow. The sudden surge of energy rippled through the tribe, awakening latent abilities and accelerating the genetic changes already in progress. Lyra, her body and mind most attuned to Ryan's influence, experienced the most dramatic transformation. Her consciousness expanded, breaking free of its physical confines. Suddenly, she could sense Ryan's presence as clearly as if he stood beside her. "Ryan," her voice echoed in his mind, crystal clear despite the vast distance between them. "I can see through your eyes." Startled, Ryan nearly dropped the mineral. "Lyra? How is this possible?" "I don't know," she replied, her mental voice tinged with awe and excitement. "But I can guide you. The technology around you, I understand it somehow." With Lyra's guidance, Ryan began to activate the ancient systems. Holographic displays flickered to life, filling the chamber with ethereal light. As the final sequence completed, a new hologram materialized before them, a message left by the creators of this wondrous technology. The hologram depicted a being of indescribable beauty and complexity. Its voice, though alien, resonated with profound wisdom as it spoke. "Greetings, children of Betazoid. If you are witnessing this message, it means you have begun to unlock your true potential. Your people were part of a grand experiment in evolution, your latent abilities designed to flourish upon contact with a compatible species. This union will mark the beginning of a new era for your kind." Ryan and Lyra absorbed the information in stunned silence. The implications were enormous, threatening to reshape their understanding of Betazoid history and their place in the galaxy. Before they could fully process this revelation, the ground beneath Ryan's feet began to shake. A deep rumble echoed through the cavern as cracks appeared in the walls. "Ryan, you need to get out of there now!" Lyra's mental voice was urgent. "The mountain is becoming unstable." With the precious mineral clutched tightly in one hand, Ryan raced for the exit. The telepathic link with Lyra proved invaluable as she guided him through the shifting tunnels. warning him of cave-ins seconds before they occurred. Heart pounding and lungs burning, Ryan emerged from the mountain just as a massive section of the cave system collapsed behind him. He stumbled down the treacherous slope, his mind turning from the harrowing escape and the weight of what he discovered. As he approached the outskirts of the village, Ryan could already sense that something had changed. The air crackled with psychic energy, and he could hear shouts of confusion and excitement. Lyra rushed to meet him, her eyes shining with an otherworldly light. "Ryan," she breathed, taking his hands in hers. "Everything has changed. The artifact in the sacred cave. It activated when you touched the mineral. The entire tribe is experiencing an awakening." Before Ryan could respond, a familiar voice cut through the commotion. Karn strode towards them, his expression a mixture of awe and resignation. "Outsider," he said, his voice lacking its usual hostility. "It seems we have much to discuss." As the trio made their way to the village center, where Zira and other elders waited, Ryan knew that the real challenges were just beginning. The Betazoid Society stood on the brink of an evolutionary leap, and he found himself at the very heart of this transformation. The mineral in his hand and the knowledge in his mind would shape the destiny of an entire species, and the weight of that responsibility pressed heavily upon him. Ryan took a deep breath, steadying himself for the challenges ahead. As they entered the village center, a palpable energy filled the air. Betazoids of all ages gathered around, their eyes wide with wonder and confusion. Some were experimenting with their newfound abilities, levitating small objects or communicating telepathically across greater distances than ever before. Zira stepped forward, her weathered face etched with a mix of concern and excitement. "Ryan, Lyra, Karn," she addressed them, her voice carrying a new depth of authority. "We must discuss what has transpired and chart our path forward." The council convened in the sacred cave, now thrumming with energy from the activated artifact. As Ryan recounted his experiences in the mountain and shared the holographic message, the elders listened intently, their expressions a mixture of awe and trepidation. "This changes everything," Karn said, his earlier hostility replaced by a grudging respect. "We must learn to harness these new abilities and understand the technology you've discovered." Ryan nodded, his mind already racing with possibilities. "I can help with that. My knowledge of Earth technology might provide insights into how these systems work." Over the next few days, Ryan worked tirelessly with the council to establish protocols for studying the alien devices. He set up a makeshift laboratory in a secluded area of the village, carefully examining each piece of technology they had retrieved from the mountain. Lyra proved invaluable in these efforts, her enhanced intellect allowing her to grasp complex concepts quickly. Together, they made significant progress in deciphering the alien language and activating some of the simpler devices. As word spread of the village's transformation, Betazoids from neighboring tribes began to arrive. Some came seeking knowledge, others hoping to unlock their own latent abilities. The influx of newcomers strained the village's resources and tested the council's ability to maintain order. One afternoon, as Ryan and Lyra were examining a particularly intricate device, a commotion erupted outside the laboratory. They rushed out to find a group of newly arrived Betazoids demanding access to the alien technology. At the forefront stood a tall, imposing figure with distinctive tribal markings. His eyes gleamed with ambition as he surveyed the gathered crowd. "I am Vex," he announced, his voice carrying across the clearing. "My people have traveled far to witness these miracles for ourselves. We demand to be included in your advancements." Ryan stepped forward, his hands raised in a placating gesture. "We welcome all who come in peace," he said, meeting Vex's gaze. "But we must be cautious. These changes are affecting our entire society, and we're still learning to control them." Vex's eyes narrowed, but he nodded in apparent acceptance. As the crowd dispersed, Ryan couldn't shake a feeling of unease. He turned to Lyra, whispering, "Keep an eye on him. Something doesn't feel right." That night, as the twin moons of Betazoid cast an ethereal glow over the village, Ryan and Lyra joined the council for a ceremony to activate one of the larger alien devices. The air crackled with anticipation as Ryan input the final sequence. Suddenly, chaos erupted. Smoke bombs detonated around the clearing, filling the air with thick, acrid fumes. Shouts and screams pierced the night as shadowy figures moved through the confusion. Ryan felt a sharp pain in his neck, and his vision began to blur. He stumbled, reaching out for Lyra, but strong hands seized him from behind. As darkness closed in, he caught a glimpse of Vex's triumphant smile. "Lyra," he called out weakly, but his voice was lost in the commotion. The last thing he felt was the rough fabric of a sack being pulled over his head before unconsciousness claimed him. When Ryan awoke, he found himself in a dimly lit cave, his wrists and ankles bound. Vex loomed over him, flanked by several betazoids wearing the same tribal markings. "Welcome, human," Vex said, his voice dripping with false hospitality. "You're going to help us unlock the true potential of our people." Ryan struggled against his bonds, his mind racing. He could feel a strange sensation building within him, like a pressure behind his eyes. Suddenly he caught a fleeting glimpse of Vex's thoughts, fragmented images of experiments and conquest. Startled by this newfound ability, Ryan forced himself to remain calm. He needed to buy time and gather information. "What do you want from me?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Vex smiled, a predatory gleam in his eyes. "You, my friend, are the key to our evolution. Your unique physiology, combined with the alien technology, will allow us to create a new breed of betazoids, stronger, faster, and more powerful than any before." As Vex outlined his plans, Ryan concentrated, attempting to strengthen his tenuous telepathic connection. He caught flashes of the surrounding area, a hidden compound deep in the uncharted betazoid wilderness. Miles away, Lyra jerked awake, her heart pounding. She could sense Ryan's distress, their bond allowing her to feel echoes of his fear and dedication. Without hesitation, she ran to alert the council. Karn, his face grim with determination, volunteered to lead the rescue mission. "I know these lands better than anyone," he said, strapping on his gear. "We'll bring Ryan back." Lyra insisted on joining, her enhanced abilities making her an invaluable asset. As they prepared to depart, they noticed a small group of betazoids exhibiting unusual physical changes, increased muscle mass, heightened senses, and incredible speed. "We're coming too," one of them said, flexing his newly strengthened arms. "Consider us your elite unit." As the rescue team set out into the wilderness, Ryan found himself strapped to a cold metal table in Vex's makeshift laboratory. Scientists moved around him, attaching sensors and preparing syringes filled with strange glowing liquids. Ryan closed his eyes, focusing on the growing telepathic ability within him. He reached out with his mind, searching for Lyra's familiar presence. For a moment he felt a faint connection, a beacon of hope in the darkness. "Hurry, Lyra," he thought, gritting his teeth as the first needle pierced his skin. "I don't know how long I can hold out." The race to save Ryan and potentially the future of the betazoid species had begun. As Lyra and Karn led their team through the treacherous jungle, Vex's experiments continued, pushing the boundaries of betazoid evolution and human endurance alike. The outcome of this rescue mission would shape the destiny of two worlds, with consequences that would echo across the stars. Galaxy. The outcome of this rescue mission would shape the destiny of two worlds, with consequences that would echo across the cosmos. As Lyra and Karn led their team through the dense betazoid jungle, the enhanced physical abilities of their companions proved to be both a blessing and a curse. Trees creaked and groaned as one team member accidentally uprooted an ancient trunk, while another's misstep caused a small avalanche of rocks and debris. "Careful," Karn hissed, raising his hand to halt the group. "We must move with precision, not brute force. Our strength means nothing if we alert Vex to our presence." Lyra nodded, her eyes closed in concentration as she reached out with her mind, searching for any trace of Ryan. Suddenly, a faint flicker of his consciousness brushed against hers, sending a jolt through her body. "I sense him," she whispered, her voice tight with emotion. "He's alive, but in pain. We must hurry." As they pressed on, Ryan found himself strapped to a cold metal table in Vex's makeshift laboratory. Scientists moved around him, attaching sensors and preparing syringes filled with strange, glowing liquids. The sharp sting of needles piercing his skin became a constant companion as Vex grew increasingly impatient. "Faster!" Vex barked at his team. "We need results now. Begin the genetic extraction process immediately." Ryan gritted his teeth as waves of agony washed over him. Through the haze of pain, he focused on the growing telepathic ability within him, reaching out desperately for Lyra's familiar presence. In the jungle, Lyra stumbled, overwhelmed by a sudden influx of images and sensations. Karn caught her arm, steadying her as she gasped for breath. "What is it?" he asked, concern etched on his face. "Ryan," Lyra panted, her eyes wide. "I can see. I know where he is. The compound, it's—" She described the location in detail, the mental image Ryan had projected burning bright in her mind. Karn quickly adjusted their course, leading the team with revitalized commitment. As they approached the compound's perimeter, a new challenge presented itself. Enhanced betazoids with unnaturally heightened senses patrolled the area, their eyes scanning the jungle for any sign of intruders. Lyra's mind raced, formulating a plan. She reached out telepathically to her teammates, coordinating their movements with silent precision. One by one, they used their newfound abilities to create distractions, rustling leaves, mimicking animal calls, and even manipulating the local flora to create false trails. Inside the compound, chaos erupted as Vex's hasty experiments yielded unexpected and horrifying results. The serum created from Ryan's genetic material caused rapid, uncontrolled mutations in the test subjects. Agonized screams echoed through the halls as betazoids transformed into hulking, aggressive creatures with diminished cognitive function. Vex's eyes gleamed with a mix of fear and excitement as he surveyed the carnage. "Imperfect but useful," he muttered, already imagining the possibilities of an army of these super soldiers. Seizing the moment of confusion, Ryan focused all his mental energy on influencing the minds of his guards. Their eyes glazed over, confusion etched on their faces as Ryan slipped from his restraints and stumbled out of the laboratory. His legs trembled beneath him, weakened by the endless experiments, but adrenaline and desperation drove him forward. As he navigated the twisting corridors, he encountered more of Vex's failed experiments. Betazoids in various stages of mutation, some barely recognizable as sentient beings. Ryan's heart pounded as he rounded a corner and found himself face to face with a group of mutant soldiers. Their muscles bulged grotesquely, veins pulsing with the experimental serum. With a primal roar, they charged towards him. Outside, Lyra sensed Ryan's spike of fear. "We're out of time," she said to Karn, her voice tight with urgency. "We need to get inside now." Karn nodded, his expression grim. "Then we fight our way in. Together." As one, the rescue team burst from their hiding places, using their enhanced abilities to overcome the perimeter guards. Lyra's telepathy guided their movements, allowing them to anticipate and counter each attack. They fought their way deeper into the compound, facing increasingly desperate and enhanced opponents. The air crackled with psychic energy as Lyra pushed her abilities to their limits, coordinating the team's efforts while searching frantically for Ryan. In the heart of the facility, Ryan stumbled into Vex's central laboratory. His eyes widened as he took in the array of advanced alien technology surrounding him. One device in particular caught his attention, a sleek, pulsing machine that seemed to resonate with his very DNA. Instinctively, Ryan knew this device held the key to reversing the genetic modifications. With shaking hands, he began to manipulate the controls, his limited understanding of the technology guided by some deep, instinctual knowledge. As the machine hummed to life, Vex's voice boomed over the compound's communication system. "Stop the human at all costs! Converge on the central laboratory!" The pounding of heavy footsteps echoed through the corridors as Vex's mutant army responded to his command. Ryan worked frantically, knowing that his time was running out. Lyra and her team fought their way through waves of enhanced betazoids, their own abilities pushed to the limit. As they approached the central laboratory, they found themselves facing a wall of mutant soldiers, the last line of defense between them and Ryan. The air crackled with tension as both sides prepared for the final confrontation. Ryan's fingers danced over the alien device's controls, racing against time to unlock its secrets. The fate of Betazoid society hung in the balance, teetering on the edge of evolutionary chaos or a new era of understanding. As Lyra's team squared off against Vex's mutant army, the compound shook with the force of their impending clash. The battle for the future of Betazoid. Betazoid society hung in the balance as Lyra's team and Vex's mutant army collided in a thunderous clash. The compound's walls shook with the force of the conflict, the air thick with the scent of ozone and sweat. Lyra's enhanced team moved with fluid precision, their movements guided by her telepathic coordination. They weaved through the lumbering mutants, using their superior agility to outmaneuver their physically imposing foes. Karn led the charge, his years of experience evident in every calculated strike and dodge. As the battle raged, Ryan's fingers danced over the alien device's controls, his mind racing to decipher its complex mechanisms. Sweat beaded on his brow as he pushed through the lingering effects of Vex's experiments, fighting to stay conscious and focused. Suddenly, a familiar presence brushed against his mind. Lyra had broken through the chaos, her mental voice a beacon of hope in the tumult. "Ryan, we're here! Hold on!" The laboratory doors burst open, and Lyra rushed in, her eyes wild with perseverance. Behind her, the sounds of combat intensified as Karn and the others held off the remaining mutants. Ryan's eyes widened as he took in Lyra's appearance. Her clothes were torn, her skin marked with bruises and cuts, but her gaze burned with fierce determination. "Lyra, I think I've almost got it, but something's not right. The device, it's..." His words were cut short as a pulse of energy erupted from the machine, enveloping the room in a shimmering field. The effect was immediate and startling. Mutated betazoids caught in its range began to convulse, their grotesquely enhanced muscles shrinking, their facial features morphing back to their original forms. "No!" Vex's voice boomed from the corridor. He appeared in the doorway, his face contorted with rage. "You'll ruin everything!" Lyra spun to face him, her body instinctively moving to shield Ryan. "It's over, Vex. Your experiments end now." Vex lunged forward, his enhanced strength propelling him across the room with terrifying speed. Lyra met his charge head-on, her own augmented abilities allowing her to match his movements. They clashed in a furious exchange of blows, the air crackling with psychic energy as Lyra's telepathic abilities sought to penetrate Vex's defenses. Ryan struggled to maintain control of the device as the energy field fluctuated wildly. The machine hummed and pulsed, reacting to the chaos around it. Through their mental link, Lyra sensed Ryan's growing distress. "Ryan, what's happening?" she called out, narrowly dodging a vicious swipe from Vex. "The device," Ryan gasped, his voice strained. "It's reacting to my genetic structure. I can't stabilize it alone." Lyra's mind raced, processing the information even as she parried Vex's relentless assault. In a moment of clarity, she understood what needed to be done. "I'm coming, Ryan! Hold on!" With a burst of speed, Lyra disengaged from Vex and sprinted towards Ryan. Vex, realizing her intention, let out a roar of fury and moved to intercept her. But before he could reach them, a blur of motion slammed into him from the side. Karn grappled with Vex, his face set in unbreakable spirit. "Go!" he shouted to Lyra. "I'll handle him." Lyra reached Ryan's side, their eyes meeting in a moment of silent understanding. Without hesitation, she wrapped her arms around him, completing the circuit between their unique genetic signatures. The effect was instantaneous. The alien device surged with power, the energy field expanding rapidly to encompass the entire compound. A blinding flash of light erupted from the machine, forcing everyone to shield their eyes. When the light faded, the scene had transformed. The mutated betazoids lay on the ground, their bodies returned to their original state. Vex, caught in the wave of energy, slumped against the wall, his enhanced physique stripped away. Ryan and Lyra remained locked in their embrace, their bodies glowing with residual energy. As the light faded, they slowly became aware of the changes wrought upon them. Their minds were more closely linked than ever before, thoughts and emotions flowing freely between them. Their physical forms had subtly altered, taking on characteristics of both human and betazoid physiologies. The laboratory fell silent as the dust settled. Karn and the rescue team moved swiftly to secure Vex and his remaining followers. The freed betazoids began to stir, confusion and disorientation evident on their faces as they tried to process what had happened. Ryan and Lyra slowly disentangled themselves, marveling at the sensations coursing through their newly altered bodies. "Are you okay?" Ryan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lyra nodded, her eyes wide with wonder. "I think so, but we're different now. Can you feel it?" Before Ryan could respond, Karn approached them, his expression a mix of awe and concern. "What happened? The mutants, they're all cured," Ryan finished, his gaze sweeping across the room. "The device reversed the genetic modifications, but in stabilizing it, Lyra and we've been changed too." Karn's brow furrowed as he studied them. "You look both human and betazoid somehow. What does this mean for you? For us?" Ryan shook his head, still trying to process the implications. "I'm not sure, but I think we've just opened up a whole new chapter in human-betazoid relations." As the group began to gather their bearings, the sound of approaching voices echoed from the corridor. Reinforcements from the village had arrived, drawn by the commotion and the sudden pulse of energy that had swept across the land. Ryan, Lyra, and their allies exchanged glances, knowing that the events that had transpired here would have far-reaching consequences. The alien technology had proven both a threat and a potential boon to Betazoid society. As the newcomers entered the laboratory, their eyes widening at the scene before them, Ryan and Lyra knew that their journey was a long way to go. The true challenge lay ahead, guiding their people through the aftermath of this evolutionary crisis and harnessing the power of the alien technology for the betterment of both humans and Betazoids. As they prepared to face the questions and decisions that awaited them, Ryan and Lyra drew strength from their newfound bond, ready to navigate the uncharted waters of their shared destiny. Future. As the gravity of their situation settled upon them, Ryan and Lyra exchanged a meaningful glance. Their newfound connection hummed between them, an unspoken understanding passing through their shared consciousness. "We need to get these people back to the village," Lyra said, her voice filled with urgency as she surveyed the disoriented Betazoids around them. Ryan nodded, already moving to support a nearby Betazoid who was struggling to stand. "Let's get moving. The sooner we get everyone to safety, the better." The journey back to the village was arduous. The group moved slowly, burdened by the weakened state of the formerly mutated Betazoids. Ryan and Lyra, however, found themselves energized by their hybrid physiology. They tirelessly assisted their companions, their enhanced strength and stamina allowing them to support multiple individuals at once. As they traveled, Ryan marveled at the changes in his body. His senses seemed sharper, his movements more fluid. He could feel Lyra's presence in his mind, a constant comfort amidst the chaos. When they finally crested the hill overlooking the village, a collective sigh of relief rippled through the group. But as they approached, Ryan noticed the growing crowd at the village entrance. Word of their arrival had clearly spread. The villagers' reactions were a mix of awe and trepidation as they took in the sight of the returning group. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as they noticed the subtle changes in Ryan and Lyra's appearance. Zira pushed her way through the throng, her eyes wide as she took in the scene before her. "By the ancestors," she breathed, her gaze fixed on Ryan and Lyra. "What happened to you?" Before they could respond, Zira shook her head and raised her voice to address the crowd. "We need to call an emergency council meeting, now!" The council chamber buzzed with tension as Ryan and Lyra recounted the events at Vex's compound. They described the alien technology, the mutations, and the ultimate reversal that had led to their current hybrid state. "The device has the power to stabilize and reverse genetic mutations," Ryan explained, his hands moving animatedly as he spoke. "It's technology beyond anything I've seen, even on Earth." Karn stepped forward, his presence commanding the room's attention. "I witnessed it all. The potential of this technology is immense, but so are the risks. We must proceed with caution." As the council deliberated, Ryan felt a sudden shift in the air. He turned to Lyra, seeing his own realization mirrored in her eyes. The news was spreading, faster than they could have anticipated. Within hours, the village was inundated with visitors from neighboring tribes. Curious Betazoids arrived in droves, eager to catch a glimpse of the hybrid couple and learn about the alien technology. Ryan watched as the village strained under the influx of newcomers. Food supplies dwindled, and tensions began to rise among the residents. He turned to Lyra, an idea forming in his mind. "We need a controlled environment," he said, his voice low. "A place to study the technology and its effects without putting the entire village at risk." Lyra nodded, catching on to his train of thought. "A research center," she agreed. "We could use it to educate people about the technology, too. Manage the spread of information." They presented their idea to the council, which agreed readily, grateful for a solution to the growing chaos. Work on the research center began immediately, with Ryan drawing up plans that blended human and betazoid architectural styles. As the facility took shape, Ryan and Lyra's bond deepened. Their shared genetic structure created an intimacy that transcended their original species barriers. They moved in perfect sync, their thoughts and emotions flowing freely between them. But not everyone viewed their closeness with approval. Ryan noticed whispers and sidelong glances from some of the villagers. He caught snippets of conversation about purity and tradition. One evening, as they oversaw the final stages of construction, a commotion erupted near the village center. They rushed to the scene to find a crowd gathered around an elderly betazoid named Thax. "We must protect our way of life," Thax's voice rang out, his eyes flashing with fervor. "This alien influence threatens to erase thousands of years of betazoid culture. We cannot allow it." Ryan felt a surge of unease as he saw heads nodding in agreement. He opened his mouth to speak, but Lyra's hand on his arm stopped him. Through their bond, he felt her caution. This was a delicate situation, one that required careful navigation. As they turned to leave, Lyra suddenly stumbled. Ryan caught her, concern flooding through him. "Lyra, what's wrong?" She looked up at him, her eyes wide with a mix of shock and wonder. "Ryan," she whispered, "I'm pregnant." The news hit him like a physical force. A child, their child, a perfect blend of human and betazoid. As the implications washed over him, Ryan realized that their unborn child would become a living symbol of the changes sweeping through betazoid society. The research center neared completion as rumors of Lyra's pregnancy spread through the village. The facility stood as a testament to the blending of human and betazoid ingenuity, its sleek lines and organic curves, a visual representation of their two species coming together. As they prepared for the center's opening, Ryan and Lyra made a groundbreaking discovery. The alien technology, when combined with their hybrid genetic structure, had the potential to create a planet-wide telepathic network. The implications were staggering. This could revolutionize betazoid society, creating unprecedented unity and shared knowledge. But it also raised serious ethical concerns about privacy and individual autonomy. As word of the discovery spread, the village once again became a hub of activity. Representatives from distant betazoid tribes arrived, eager to witness the activation of the communication network. Standing before the gathered crowd, Ryan and Lyra faced the alien device. The weight of responsibility pressed down on them as they prepared to initiate the system that would irrevocably change betazoid civilization. Ryan took a deep breath, his hand hovering over the activation panel. He glanced at Lyra, seeing his own mix of excitement and trepidation reflected in her eyes. This was it, the moment that would shape the future of an entire planet. With a shared nod, they placed their hands on the panel together. The device hummed to life, energy pulsing through it as it began to power up. The air crackled with anticipation as everyone waited to see what would happen next. As Ryan's hand hovered over the activation panel, a commotion erupted outside the research center. Shouts and angry voices filtered through the walls, growing louder by the second. Ryan and Lyra exchanged a worried glance, their newfound connection allowing them to sense the rising tension without a word. Karn burst through the door, his face etched with concern. "It's Thax," he said, breathing heavily. "He's gathered a group of protesters. They're trying to block access to the center." Ryan's teeth clenched. "We can't let them stop this. We've come too far." Lyra nodded, her hand instinctively moving to her swollen belly. "We need to proceed for the future of both our peoples." Karn straightened, his expression hardening with willpower. "I'll handle it. You two focus on activating the network." As Karn left to confront the protesters, Ryan and Lyra turned back to the alien device. The soft hum of its inner workings seemed to grow louder, as if sensing the impending activation. Outside, Thax's voice rose above the crowd. "We cannot allow this abomination. Our way of life is at stake." Karn's steady reply came next. "Friends, please, let us not act in fear. This is a moment of progress, not destruction." Ryan took a deep breath, pushing aside the chaos outside. He focused on Lyra, drawing strength from their shared bond. "Ready?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lyra nodded, her eyes shining with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "Together," she said. They placed their hands on the activation panel simultaneously. The device pulsed beneath their touch, its glow intensifying rapidly. Energy crackled along its surface, arcing between their fingers. A wave of light erupted from the machine, engulfing Ryan and Lyra before expanding outward. It swept through the research center, its walls seeming to ripple as the energy passed through them. Outside, the arguments fell silent as the wave washed over the village. Thax, mid-shout, stumbled backward, his eyes wide with shock. Karn steadied himself against a nearby building, his mouth agape as the energy coursed through him. The wave continued to spread, racing across the landscape. It crested hills, swept through forests, and skimmed across oceans. Within minutes, it had encompassed the entire planet. In the research center, Ryan and Lyra gasped as their minds expanded. Suddenly, they could feel the presence of every betazoid on the planet. Thoughts, emotions, and memories flowed between them in a dizzying torrent of information. "It's incredible," Lyra breathed, her eyes unfocused as she processed the influx of sensations. Ryan nodded, equally overwhelmed. "I can feel them all, every single one." As the initial shock subsided, they became aware of the reactions sweeping across the planet. Confusion gave way to wonder as betazoids everywhere realized the extent of their new connection. Suddenly, Lyra doubled over, a sharp cry escaping her lips. Ryan was at her side instantly, supporting her weight. "Lyra, what's wrong?" She looked up at him, her eyes wide. "The babies. They're coming." Ryan's heart raced as he helped Lyra to a nearby chair. "Now? But it's too soon." Before he could say more, Zira burst into the room, followed by several other betazoid women. "We felt it," Zira said, moving swiftly to Lyra's side. "The whole village knows. We're here to help." As Lyra's labor progressed, Ryan marveled at the unique way he experienced it through their mental link. He felt every contraction, every surge of pain and persistence. Hours passed in a blur of shared sensations and emotions. Finally, with a final push and a cry that seemed to echo through the minds of every betazoid on the planet, Lyra gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. Ryan cradled them in his arms, awestruck by their perfect blend of human and betazoid features. As he held his children, Ryan felt a sudden shift in the telepathic network. The twins were connecting to it, their infant minds reaching out with innocent curiosity. The impact was immediate and profound. A wave of joy and wonder swept across the planet, touching the minds of all betazoids. The door to the research center opened, and Thax entered hesitantly. His earlier anger had melted away, replaced by a look of wonder and contrition. May I see them?" he asked softly. Ryan nodded, carefully handing the twins to Thax. As the old betazoid gazed down at the infants, his expression transformed. Tears welled in his eyes, and through the network, Ryan felt the man's change of heart. "I was wrong," Thax said, his voice thick with emotion. "These children, they are our future. A bright future, filled with possibilities I never imagined." As word of the birth spread through the network, Ryan sensed a shift in the collective consciousness of the betazoid people. The last vestiges of resistance to change crumbled away, replaced by a surge of hope and unity. Ryan turned to Lyra, who was resting peacefully after the delivery. Through their bond, he felt her contentment and love. As he looked at his new family, surrounded by the warm glow of acceptance from the betazoid people, Ryan knew that their journey was nowhere near the end. The activation of the network and the birth of their children were just the beginning of a new era for both humans and betazoids.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, And for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.